Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. It's sometimes easy to forget that even though heroes can occupy the same territory, it can be rare for them to share a singular adventure. Maybe it's just really hard to sync their schedules whenever they want to punch Red Skull in the face or toilet paper Lex Luthor's mansion. But today, we're taking issue with X-Men Fantastic Four, also known as X4, where the Children of the Atom join with Marvel's first family that merges more than their itinerary. Let's start off with issue number 1 and see if this comic makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads.
The cover is a wraparound featuring both teams charging forward over some rubble. Sue looks like she's sleep posing like a narcoleptic model. Not sure why smoke is coming out of Ben Grimm's mouth. Did he lose a cigar because of whatever caused the destruction? Wolvie looks kind of villainous, if you ask me, seeming absolutely delighted at the prospect of clawing something out of view. And Storm, she has her head tilted back as she flies ahead. Is she about to break into song?
Which, between having been worshipped as a goddess in her native African village and currently being owned by Disney, sounds like the right ingredients for a cartoon musical. Weird how well those pieces fit together eventually. Eerie, even.
Written by Akira Yoshida, with art by Pat Lee, Rob Armstrong, Edwin Garcia on the backgrounds, Stu Ung, Alan Wang, and Ramil Sunga, we begin outside the space station Simulacra, where various astronauts are preparing for the arrival of a Mars lander that just entered their orbit. Though considering the direction it's coming from, I don't know what this guy's pointing at. Is he telling a janitor they missed a spot? Anyway, they retrieve the lander, no problems, congrats all around, until someone orders a code red.
I don't care how bad it is for my teeth, it's my favorite Mountain Dew flavor!
NASA fails to get a response before a portion of the station explodes. Man, Marvin ain't playing around anymore. Chapter 1, First Contact.
Well, feel like a pretty cramped crossover, but hey, Picard's crew has experience working with the X-Men, so Borg or no Borg, I'm in. Though I think it'd make it Third Contact this time, wouldn't it?
We go to the Xavier Institute, where incessant doorbell ringing has disturbed Logan, making him very grouchy. Note the, note on his door. Once you've slept it off, we'll be in the danger room. Knowing him, that could be any number of things, but for now, he goes to answer the front door, barely finishing his threat of giving an adamantium claw enema when he sees the FF, and Reed apparently the one hitting the button. I always pegged Johnny as the type to obnoxiously ring a doorbell over and over again, but that's me. Wolvie slams the door on them, only for an offended Thing to pry it open. Mr. Fantastic wants to talk to the X-Men's big brain, but their unannounced visit interfered with Logan's sleep, so he's headed back to bed.
Don't you like surprises, you big baby? Oh, I like surprises, all right. You never know when one's gonna pop out at you.
No lie, when I read that, I genuinely heard Cal Dobbs' voice in my head. Ever the diplomat, Wolvie charges Ben and they crash through the front door.
What's a little destruction of property and casual assault between friends?
As Sue deals an I told you so to her genius hubby about how they should not have arrived unannounced, Ben knocks Wolvie back, in kind of a weird progression. At first it looks like he'll hit him into that column, then looks suspended in the air like he's twisting around. Thing probably just hit him again in a different direction, but in this panel with the Human Torch, it looks like he's awkwardly sticking out of an awning. The sequence just kind of feels off. Storm arrives, asking what the deal is, but when Johnny tells her the two of them are just goofing around, blowing off steam, she hits him with a gust of wind that sends him to the ground. Nightcrawler catches him, but Johnny interprets this as them ganging up on him, so reignites his flame, burning the fuzzy elf, and goes after Ororo. Just as Wolverine is about to try more rock carving, Sue sets up an invisible shield, and Emma Frost deals a mild psychic hit to end hostilities, and invites the four inside to discuss why they're visiting.
A dozen pages into this thing, and we've mostly gotten some pointless fighting. I'll grant maybe it's not too outlandish or out of character for Logan and Ben to start scrapping. Respectively speaking, one's got a short fuse, and the other is your general tough guy. But Storm is usually more level-headed, and I don't see why she would attack Johnny, who really wasn't doing anything. And let's not forget Sue could have used that field a lot sooner. Did they think that readers wouldn't bother with this comic unless there was a fight scene in the first half of the issue?
In the parlor, Reed apologizes for their abrupt arrival, but thought making a request in person was more appropriate this time. He'd like to hold off on the details until Professor X joins them, but is informed that Cyclops and White Queen are in charge now. This story being from 2005, Chuck's absence this time is because he'd left to help rebuild Genosha.
Which, yes, I did have to look up, because it's been a while since I read this era of X-Men comics. Also, Xavier seems to be off campus a lot when you think about it. Going into space, rebuilding a small nation, going on a journey to repair old mistakes, faking his death. It makes you wonder just how committed he really is to education.
To help demonstrate his point, Richards uses a device that'll connect the X-Men's TV to the Baxter Building's communication array, showing them what happened to the space station.
And yet he's too paranoid to let anyone else use his Netflix account.
There were a total of 18 people on board, and with communications somehow blocked 9 hours after someone indicated a breach, it's unknown if there are survivors. Reed had hoped they could use Cerebra after modifying it to scan for human life instead of specifically mutants, but Emma suggests the distance would be too great. Not just for her, as Ben callously suggests, but for any telepath on Earth, though Scott has the idea of taking a telepath above Earth. It's possible taking Emma closer to the station might allow her to scan for life signs, providing the field blocking comms doesn't become a problem. But Frost doesn't like the idea of a space trip. Considering how vain she is, she's probably worried about helmet hair. Scott pleads with her that they might be the only ones capable of saving lives and reuniting families, when Ben chimes in with how they'll get up there in the first place. So Logan leads them to their X-plane, which doesn't seem space-worthy at first to Ben, until it's clarified the craft is outfitted with Shi'ar technology that put NASA to shame. Reed figures it'd only take a few adjustments to make the craft work for their needs, except for one hitch. Only 6 seats.
Oh, easy fix. Just sit in each other's lap. Don't tell me you don't want to see Ben get his revenge by sitting on Logan's lap.
It's decided that Emma will be joined by Ben, Sue, Nightcrawler, and Logan. And despite Beast advising against sending anyone with energy-based powers into a pressurized station, Gambit is on the team because of his resourcefulness. Before long, the ship is ready. Farewells are given to loved ones, Sue telling Emma it never gets easier leaving family behind, and the away team is off. Though in a very abrupt turn, just as they're already in the furthest reaches of the atmosphere, Sue asks Frost how the X-Men are handling her and Psyche being so close, and Frost likens it to how the FF feels when Namor stops by. Other than displaying Emma's cattiness, I'm not sure why this exchange takes place. Is Sue the kind of person that just asks relationship questions like this, or was she close to the then recently deceased again Jean Grey? Anyway, they've arrived at the devastated station.
Mein Gott! You could say that again.
I'd rather not. That was using the Lord's name in vain, technically, and I've got enough rosaries to pray as it is.
They dodge debris as they make it to the dockport, and Emma's telepathic scan detects at least 6 survivors, all of whom are terrified. The bay is pressurized, Sue bubbles them just in case, and they begin checking out the area. They pass through a couple of doors before the issue ends on a splash page showing the team face to face with the Brood.
Well, either that or someone forgot about their vegetable medley in the fridge.
Issue 2's cover shows the mutants of the away team looking different. Kurt is turning translucent, Remy is glowing, Emma looks calloused, and Logan's arms are all warped.
I guess when you feature in as many X-Men titles as he does, even an adamantium skeleton and a healing factor can get stretched out.
After a recap page, Reed is looking at something he does not like, which gets extended to 3 panels because Beast is being snarky. Essentially, there is a nearby cosmic irregularity.
Sounds like the solar system needs to eat more fiber and drink plenty of water.
Richards had noticed it before, but he didn't say anything because it didn't seem like a factor at the time. But now, with a solar flare kicking up neutrino levels, it's looking like a recreation of the phenomena that gave the Fantastic Four their superpowers. He recounts the circumstances of his team's origins, which oddly enough sees them in their FF suits already, even with their logo, possibly an artist's oversight.
Yes, your origin has been quite well documented, Reed.
Hey, we see Batman's parents get shot twice a year. I don't think it's too much to mention that I built my own rocket!
Hank is curious what more cosmic cooties could do to Ben and Sue, but Mr. Fantastic is more concerned with how it'll affect mutants like the X-Men. But so long as they aren't delayed getting back, they should be fine. Oh, right, the whole swarm of brood thing. Well, that could be a problem. Grimm gets a quick lesson on what the brood are, parasites that inject eggs into hosts and control their bodies, which is what happened to the station's crew. And they're a lot smarter than the aliens from the movies, as one speaks and attacks the thing.
You'd think with all the aliens he's encountered with his own team, he'd be less surprised when a space bug doesn't conform to a Ridley Scott film.
They got acid for blood? No. Good.
And Ben just punches the brood, which for some reason I find delightfully hilarious. Naturally, as the fight gets going, the brood warn of the legendary Wolverine's kill count of their ilk, because even bloodthirsty aliens can't forget how super cool he is.
Most legends are based on facts, Slime, and it's time you face the facts.
That line probably sounded better in the writer's head than it does on paper. Anyway, the critters announce they should attack from afar, but Gambit can strike long range with his cards, so it's not much of an advantage. Even though it was mentioned earlier how bad an idea energy-based powers would be on this mission.
I'm a professor. Why isn't anyone listening to me?
I know LeBeau likes being the rebel, but I think he could forego risking everyone's lives just to prove he can play by his own rules. Am I wrong about this scientifically, or isn't it a bad idea to cause explosions in pressurized environments?
Maybe the cheat here is that he threw it into a brood's mouth, but it still seems like a bad idea. With 2 creatures left, Emma creates a telepathic link and elects to let the guys handle them while she and Sue go looking for any non-transformed crew members. Ben thinks Gambit should go with them in case more brood are looking about.
The cold. Damsels in distress are my specialty.
But after a look from the psychic that can turn to diamond and the scientist that could put him inside a tiny bubble, Remy says he was referring to any of the other crew members. Yes, I totally see how Rogue fell for this guy and ultimately married him. They take off while Thing, Logan, and Nightcrawler deal with the remaining brood, one of whom psionically warns its queen of incoming superheroes. When Frost senses the crew nearby, Susan uses her powers to make them all fade from sight.
When Gambit imagined what it'd be like to be invisible around a pair of blondes, this probably wasn't what he had in mind.
They enter a room and decloak when they find 4 survivors. But as Sue checks on them, they find chest wounds indicative of being implanted with brood eggs. And that's when the Queen shows herself.
If she weren't evil enough already, she just got done with a really long car ride with her kids, so she's even more irritable.
The Queen threatens to make them all hosts, and when they get to Earth, the same will happen to Susan's husband and children, whom she knows about somehow and decided to specifically threaten. But that only motivates the Invisible Woman to do 2 things. Deliver a really cheesy line about counting your eggs before they hatch, and take the term Slay Queen to an entirely different context. She uses her powers to create a sword and slice the monster's tail like she was Gohan training to fight the Saiyans. Seriously, kudos to whoever thought up the idea of Sue conjuring offensive weaponry with her powers. The Queen warns that there's an army on its way, and Mrs. Richards says she'll meet them in the abyss, killing the brood's matriarch. Though it's heavily shadowed. Whether it was a matter of graphic content or page space, I'm not really sure. In any event, Gambit swears off any more damsel jokes, and Emma, impressed Susan would go so far, hopes she can stomach what comes next.
We gotta skin it, gut it, stuff it, and throw it in the oven at 450 degrees. Tonight, we eat like kings!
Actually, they have to kill the infected crew. Sue doesn't like that one bit, and no amount of rationalization that it's too late to save them even comes close to swaying her. Convinced that her husband can find a way to cure them before the eggs finish incubating, she knocks the White Queen out before she can telepathically disable her. Good thing her powers work at the speed of thought, too. She finds a jamming device, disables it as the rest of the team join them, and contacts the Institute in time for there to be no time left. Warned of the impending cosmic storm, they have to leave immediately.
The parking meter is almost expired, and I forgot to give you spare change! Get out of there now!
Wolvie senses the eggs hatching, with hours before the crew become monsters themselves, and tries putting them out of their misery, but Sue stops him. Ben's not a fan of this either, but he admits he'd rather die than become one of the ravenous aliens. Sue says they're leaving the station with the crew alive, intending to come back for them after the storm passes, if only because there's always hope. And it looks like Emma regained consciousness in between panels. Good for her. Though it occurs to me Nightcrawler could probably teleport them back to the ship much faster than they could all run there. They manage to make it to the X-plane and take off, just as the phenomena closes in. They fail to evade it, and the effect it has on the X-Men is of particular focus, though Grimm seems immune, and possibly Sue as well, but we don't see her. But she is the Invisible Woman after all. The craft is disabled by the storm, crashing into a forest, and the comic ends on what the cover promised: the Fantastic Four's powers remade within the X-Men as they emerge from the wreckage.
Even the cosmos is getting in on the reboot trend. At least a cold, vacuous void couldn't possibly do worse than a 2015 movie. Or DC Comics.
The setup that sees these teams working together has a lot of potential, and they gave reasonable explanation as to why some could go and some couldn't. Though Gambit was an exception if you ask me. Practically a contradiction. There had to be another X-Man they could use to later turn into a knockoff Human Torch. The pacing was more or less fine, no jarring problems that stand out to me, and I like the art with a manga-style sensibility and an element of grit you'd see in the likes of Old Man Logan or the Gambit miniseries we looked at last year. It seemed to make up for all the exposition and dialogue of Reed talking about the problems on the station, with starting off with an excuse for Ben and Logan to brawl, because I guess an exploding space station wasn't exciting enough. It made less sense for Storm to attack Johnny, and it felt like it all could have been resolved much sooner. Some of the snappy banter felt at times either forced or fillery, but it's still entertaining so far.
Tune in next week to see how the X-Men deal with having new powers on top of their own. Will they become even more effective in fighting for mutant rights? Is there a new danger that comes with these abilities? Could 20th Century Fox have been able to hold on to their movie rights if they turned this into a movie? Probably not that last one. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.